but it is Chase Utley this week, who you are very, very passionate about his Hall of Fame case.
Yeah, that's right. So in terms of where Chase Utley's at right now, he's in his first year on the ballot, and he is debuting on a really, really tough ballot to debut on. He is, one of the one of the premier first years, but Joe Mauer and Adrian Beltre have understandably gotten a lot more attention. As of right now, as we're recording this, he is at 42.9% of the vote, with 47.9% of the vote in. I'm hoping we can see him get around 35 to 40% of the vote when it does get revealed on Tuesday. I think that'd be a good debut for him. And I'll talk more about like the status of this vote and what it means for him later. But um I'll start with this on the surface stats so we can go two at a time, I guess, here. So Chase Utley as a second baseman had 64.5 career baseball reference wins above replacement and also 61.6 Fangraphs wins above replacement. He had a 49.3 peak wins above replacement, which is 4.9 above the average Hall of Fame second baseman.
And just looking strictly offensively at the plate, he's for his career he slashed 275, 358, 465, 817 for a 117 OPS plus and 118 weighted runs created plus, which puts him 17% and 18% respectively above league average for his career, and that took place over the course of 7,863 plate appearances. And then, as far as career count statistics go, on the offensive side of things, he had 1,885 career hits, 259 home runs, 1,025 RBI, 154 stolen bases, 724 walks, and 411 doubles.
Yeah, just like a little correction here. He had an 823 OPS, not an 817 OPS. My bad. I'm the one that wrote that. He had 51.3 offensive WAR and 17.3 defensive WAR for his career. And sort of going into his other aspects of the game, he had 104.2 defensive runs above average and 76.2 BSR, which is a lot.
It is quite a bit, and we'll get more into what that kind of means later on. So, in terms of accolades, Chase Utley was a six-time All-Star, four-time Silver Slugger, and also a 2008 World Series champion. And in the postseason, he had his moments, but overall he hit 224 with a 774 OPS in 258 career postseason plate appearances. And in the World Series, he had 56 plate appearances and 7 home runs. So one out of every 8 World Series plate appearances for Chase Utley was a home run, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, so now looking at comparisons, Chase Utley is one of a few players with 60 to 65 baseball reference wins above replacement in 7,500 to 8,000 plate appearances. The other ones are Mark McGwire, a guy that probably would have been voted into the Hall of Fame with his track record if not for his ties with PEDs. He peaked at 23.7% on the ballot that he maxed out on. Jim Edmonds, who was a first ballot drop, although a guy that a lot of people have kind of agreed probably deserved more of a chance. Paul Goldschmidt, a guy that we mentioned earlier. If Paul Goldschmidt retired right now, I think a lot of people would think he's a Hall of Famer, and he's there, entering his age 36 season in 2024. Billy Hamilton, not the Reds center fielder from about a decade ago, but a Veterans Committee Hall of Famer with over 900 career stolen bases. And Jack Glasscock, another first ballot drop from the dead ball era, a guy that a lot of dead ball historians think deserved a better shot at the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, correct. He does have he did have quite a track record. Um, with the other comparison to compare his league and park adjusted offensive statistics compared to some others that had his longevity. Players with a 115 to 120 OPS plus in 7,500 to 8,000 plate appearances. Uh, those players are Sean Green, who is a first ballot drop, Justin Upton, who has not played since 2022, Del Ennis, who is a second ballot drop, George Hendrick, who is a first ballot drop, Phil Cavaretta, who maxed out on ballots. And those are the players. However, it can be tricky to compare his OPS plus and longevity compared to other players, because those other players did not have the defensive nor base running pedigree that Chase Utley had, which is why Chase Utley has nearly 30 more Baseball Reference wins above replacement than everyone else on that list I just previously mentioned.
So we'll start by providing a case against Chase Utley, and a lot of it is a lot of general, kind of basic surface level things. Chase Utley never finished top 5 in MVP voting, and he only finished top 10 3 times. And he never finished top 5 in OPS plus among position players in any season, and he only finished top 10 twice.
And one of the main arguments against Chase Utley is that longevity and not hitting those traditional Hall of Fame milestones, whether it be, obviously didn't get close to 3,000 hits nor 2,000 hits. Also, didn't get 300 home runs or like 500 doubles or even 200 stolen bases. There has not been a player to retire after 1976 and get into the Hall of Fame with less than 2,000 hits. So it's just something that traditionally is put against guys, which it could go in the case against Chase Utley.
He also never won a Gold Glove at second base, which is a, defense primary position. A lot of good defenders are at second base. It's definitely more known for defense than offense, especially in that era. And Chase Utley never won a Gold Glove there. And also his career Baseball Reference wins above replacement and JAWS, which is the Jay Jaffe Hall of Fame evaluator. They are both below the average Hall of Fame second baseman.
Yeah, and then the last point, if you haven't been on social media for a good bit here, he does the Mets fans do not think he should be in the Hall of Fame. They've said it countless times, so I think that goes in the case against Chase Utley, is he does not have the approval of the Mets fandom.
Yeah, and I'm sure he probably won't have the New York. I don't know if the New York Post has done their group reveal yet. I know they usually do. I'm sure it won't be very nice to him if they have.
Yes.
But to be
Yes.
fair, I also think it won't be nice to most people that are not named Adrian Beltre.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It can be tough. It can be tough for sure.
Yeah.
So now on to the case for Chase Utley, which we're a little bit more in line with. And we'll get into that with the ballot reveals when we do. But the case for Chase Utley, there's a lot to get into there. His peak wins above replacement is a good amount above average for a Hall of Fame second baseman. Never mind regular second baseman, but for a Hall of Fame second baseman, his peak WAR is a good amount above average. It was, I think, 4 or 5 above average for the best 7 years of his career. And last that point I'll get into before I hand it off to you is his career extra base taken rate was 54%. We mentioned, league average is usually around like 40. At its peaking point, it was around 45%, but in Utley's era, it was around 40%. For reference, Ricky Henderson's extra base taken rate was 55%, which is only 1 percentage point above Chase Utley's. Lou Brock's was 53%, and then going to the more elite base runners of Utley's time, Jose Reyes's extra base taken rate was 49%. Jimmy Rollins's was 47%, and Ichiro's was only 41%. And that's why Chase Utley's base running value was so high despite lower stolen base numbers, is he went first to third a lot on singles. He went first to home a lot on doubles. He went second to home a lot on singles, which brought his extra base taken rate to 54%, which is only 1 percentage point below Ricky Henderson's career extra base taken rate.
Yeah, and going more into base running metrics, 87.5% career stolen base rate. He had 154 career stolen bases to only 22 caught stealings. Just to give you an idea of how good 87.5% is, Ricky Henderson's career stolen base rate was 80.7%. Lou Brock's was 75.3%. Jose Reyes's was 80.2%. Jimmy Rollins, his teammate, was 81.7%, and Ichiro's was 81.3%. So Chase Utley was at least 6% above all of those guys in terms of stolen base rate, which is just remarkable. And again, normally this is something we kind of put in the case against, but it's here for Chase Utley. He finished top 3 among position players in Baseball Reference wins above replacement in 5 seasons. From 2005 through 2009, he finished top 3 every single year, which is legitimately very remarkable and not something that you see very often.
Yes, absolutely. And in that peak, extending it from 2005 to 2010, Chase Utley trailed only Albert Pujols in F-WAR, which is, the whole package statistics. And that's because Chase Utley had a 133 OPS plus, 59% extra base taken rate, and averaged 20 defensive runs saved per year from 2005 to 2010, which is a 6-year span. It's a pretty long time to be the second best player in baseball. And
Yeah.
along with that, he had 5 7-win seasons on Baseball Reference. There are 6 other players with exactly 5 such seasons, and all are Hall of Famers except for Shoeless Joe Jackson. He's the only other guy who had exactly 5 7-win seasons who did not get into the Hall of Fame.
So going into some more stats that set Chase Utley apart with a bunch of other Hall of Famers, Chase Utley had 5 seasons with 600 plus plate appearances, a 900 OPS, and 7 plus Baseball Reference wins above replacement. That means he took a lot of at bats, had very good rate statistics, and replacement, which is 7 is very hard to accumulate in a single season. And like I mentioned, it's him and 20 other people that have at least 5 of such seasons. And let me just go through this list of the 20 others. I know that it's going to be a very long list, but bear with me here. It is Willie Mays, Barry Bonds, Hank Aaron, Lou Gehrig, Stan Musial, Babe Ruth, Albert Pujols, Alex Rodriguez, Rogers Hornsby, Mike Trout, Mike Schmidt, Eddie Matthews, Ted Williams, Mel Ott, Tris Speaker, Mike Cobb, Wade Boggs, Frank Robinson, Mickey Mantle, and Chase Utley. Those are all. I mean, I know not all of them are Hall of Famers. Barry Bonds, Albert Pujols, Alex Rodriguez, Mike Trout, but those are inner circle greats in baseball. Like those are like saying that they're Hall of Famers doesn't do it enough justice to say how good they truly were at baseball. You can make if I threw out 20 baseball players right there and said, "Hey, these are my 20 best players of all time." I don't think there's a lot of guys that you're like, "Wait a minute, what about that guy?"
Yeah, for
And
sure.
Chase
For sure.
Utley is right there in the mix with them.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, so there's that. That's one of my favorite statistics that I found when doing this research. And then another one, he is one of 6 second basemen to have 5 7-WAR seasons on Baseball Reference. The other 5 are Rogers Hornsby, Nap Lajoie, Eddie Collins, Joe Morgan, and Charlie Gehringer, all of which are slam dunk Hall of Famers.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And then to kind of dive in a little bit more deeply with some separate statistics combining, he is one of 5 players with 5 or more seasons with 4 plus offensive WAR and 2 plus defensive WAR. The other 4 players to do that are Cal Ripken Jr., Joe Gordon, Gary Carter, and Lou Boudreau, who are all also Hall of Famers. And then looking at his individual 2008 season, his 2008 is one of 5 seasons in MLB history with 6 plus offensive WAR and 3.5 plus defensive WAR. And the only other players to ever put up such a season are Cal Ripken Jr., Ernie Banks, and Rogers Hornsby. And no one has had such a season. No one else has had such a season since 1991.
So going into his base running and his offense, Chase Utley is one of 5 players in baseball history to put up a career 115 plus weighted runs created plus, which means for his career he was 15% above the average hitter, and a 70 plus base running runs, or BSR as it's called. The other 4 players to have those metrics are Ricky Henderson, Tim Raines, Billy Hamilton, the old one, and Joe Morgan, who are all Hall of Famers. And he is one of just 4 second basemen to have 6 plus seasons with 15 home runs and a 375 on base percentage. The other 3 second basemen to do so 6 times or more are Rogers Hornsby again, Craig Biggio, and Joe Morgan again. Once again, all of them Hall of Famers.
Correct. And he is one of 3 players in baseball history with 150 plus batting runs 125 plus fielding runs and 40 plus base running runs. The other two are Barry Bonds and Willie Mays, which is pretty extraordinary. Also, the fielding runs doesn't even the fielding runs hasn't even considered the fact that that doesn't include that doesn't include the positional value, which second base has a high positional value. So the fielding runs even make it more impressive with those numbers. And we mentioned like the 76 BSR that correlates a lot to that extra base taken rate that we talked about previously. Didn't have the highest stolen base numbers, but when he did steal, he was successful 7 out of 8 times, literally, which is a very, very high rate. And then he took the extra base on other people's hits 54% of the time, which was like 14 percentage points above league average for a career, which is really, really high. Which is why his base running lore is so valuable and is why those numbers are so high.
Yeah, so I want to talk about some of the ways the writers have continuously gotten it wrong with Chase Utley throughout his career, and why I think that if the current sabermetric knowledge existed back in the mid aughts and late aughts, Chase Utley would have a much stronger Hall of Fame case among the writers. So in 2005, Chase Utley put up a 291, 376, 540 slash line for a 915 OPS. The start of his peak, where he put up a 7.3 B WAR season, and he got 13th in the MVP voting, despite having the 5th highest wins above replacement among everyone that got MVP votes in the National League that year. And you can say, well, WAR is not the end all be all, and people don't look at it. You're right. People definitely didn't look at it in 2005 because it didn't really exist back then. But with the current way that MVP is voted on, I promise you, Chase Utley would have done much better than 13th in that vote. He would have been, at least top 10, maybe even top 5. And then going into 2006, and I'm going to go through every single one of these years, by the way, because this needs to be said. He got tied for 7th with Jose Reyes in the MVP vote that year. He slashed 309, 379, 527 for a 906 OPS and another 7.3 B WAR season. He was 3rd among all NL vote getters in B WAR that year with 7.3 behind only Albert Pujols, who finished 2nd, and Carlos Beltran, who finished 4th. They actually got it a little closer this year, but even still, he should have done better than tied for 7th in that season. They gave it to Ryan Howard that year, who had 2 less B WAR. And, he did hit 58 home runs, and that's pretty cool and all, but I think that vote would have gone a lot differently today. Matt Olson probably would have won MVP in the National League this year. I think there's a fair chance.
At least 2nd.
Or at least done better. I don't know. They might have still given it to Acuna with the stolen bases and stuff. But
Right.
Then going into 2007, another one, Chase Utley had the 3rd highest wins above replacement among vote getters in the National League, behind only Albert Pujols and David Wright. David Wright had by the way, if you're a Mets fan listening to this, David Wright had the 2nd highest B WAR and got 4th. He should have done better than 4th. Chase Utley had the 3rd best and got 8th. He had a 976 OPS that year, one of the best throughout this span. And then 2008, this is the egregious one. This is the most outrageous vote that Chase Utley had to partake in. Chase Utley put up a 9-win season. This was that season that I mentioned with 6.5 offensive wins above replacement and 3 defensive wins above replacement. He put up a 292, 380, 535 for a 915 OPS. He had the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th highest OPS in the National League, including Manny Ramirez, who played 53 games in the NL that year. And he finished 14th in MVP voting. He should have gotten 2nd in that vote. He got 14th. And then 2009, the final year that I will discuss here, where he finished 8th in the MVP vote, despite being 2nd again in B WAR at 8.2. So Chase Utley would have had much better MVP voting results if the votes had taken place today, which is why I don't agree with using accolades from 15 years ago to discuss if a guy's a Hall of Famer today. because it's the same writers that got it wrong back then that are now deciding right now, based on their own previous work, whether he should be a Hall of Famer or not. And the same thing goes for Gold Gloves. We talked a lot about his defense in this case and why his defense stands up with a lot of Hall of Famers, and he was never given a Gold Glove. Again, that's the writers deciding that someone else deserved it more. Chase Utley was definitely a lot more deserving in many of those years. And if we had modern statistics, he would have been given a lot more Gold Gloves.
Yeah, it's a great point to make of not evaluating not evaluating how we viewed a player 15 years ago, because
Hmm.
I think everyone would agree that we have looked at players a lot. We look at players a lot differently in 2023 than we did back in 2008. Or when Utley's prime was, and some people think that's for the worst. And I would say most people would agree that it's for the better. So evaluating based on what the writers viewed Utley as in 2008 is it's a little bit myopic. And you should evaluate based on how we view him now, because those numbers aren't changing, and we just have the information now, and it's more organized now, and we can understand why Chase Utley was such a valuable player now, along with a variety of other players. We can make that same case with guys like Andrew Jones, Todd Helton,
Bobby
um,
Abreu is another one.
Bobby Abreu. Like, we can do that now. So let's use those tools, and let's evaluate these guys properly now, because we have that chance, and it actually means a little bit more now than those MVP votes did. So yeah, that's
Yeah. And there is just
pretty
so
important.
much public data that we have access to now as fans that we didn't have access to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Right. And, in that case, like, that's why I don't like using accolades to judge someone's Hall of Fame case in general, because it's like, why would I judge someone's Hall of Fame case based on what someone else thought of them 15 years ago when I can decide, hey, I judge people's Hall of Fame cases based on who they were rather than who someone else thought they were. That's the right way to go about it, especially with the dramatic change that we've seen in player evaluation over the last 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, Juan Gonzalez finished top 5 in MVP 4 times, and I think we
Hmm.
could all agree that maybe that was a bit of a bit of a jump in how we should have evaluated. So those are the types of seasons we're talking about when we're comparing these guys. So yeah, I mean, the conversation of evaluating players has changed so much in the last 15 years. So we can't we can't use those 2005 to 2009 MVP evaluations really with more than a grain of salt. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's, and there's so many different players we could use that argument with today. So, and Utley is probably the most extreme example of that. Yeah, anything more for the Chase Utley case?
I think let's just get into ballot reveals. I've been waiting for this for a while.